we have a special guest joining us this morning. We have Amit Kumar Gupta, the founder of Fintrekk, joining us to give us a mood check of the markets. Amit, good morning. What's going on? Obviously, some sort of an excitement with the ceasefire announcements. But beyond that, is there any other trigger that you feel which is driving the sentiment of the markets in positive territory this morning?
Yeah, hi, Kartik. Good morning. Thank you for having me. No, I think it's more of a reaction to the ceasefire announcement. If you remember, even last week I said, I'm not sure, how much seriously we should all take all this, and the theatrics which we have seen last evening, where missiles were actually fired, and announcement was actually made before that.
Yeah.
It just reiterates my point that all this is. Pretty much theatrics, and market has already sensed it. The market's muted reaction to rising oil prices or even the geopolitical escalation. Participants are actually looking beyond these immediate risks, and that is reflecting in the markets also.
Talk to me specifically, Amit, about energy stocks, and we'll just pull them up on the screen as well. In fact, while Reliance is in the green this morning, up about 0.75% in trade right now, Indian oil is up about 3.6%, but we are seeing a completely different picture on ONGC and OIL, which are both taking a beating. ONGC is down about 2.17%, and OIL is down almost 4% in trade. Why is this divergence seen when we talk about energy stocks per se?
It's very clear. I mean, the oil exploration stocks generally tend to do well when the crude is rising. Now, crude has fallen almost 7-8%. So all these ONGC, OIL kind of stocks are in the red, and the other crude derivative stocks like Reliance, etc. They are doing well in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a reaction to what is happening to the crude prices overnight.
All right. So a sort of softening of crude oil prices, the Brent crude now softening, again, given what we are hearing of the ceasefire, even though Iran is yet to officially agree or confirm whether it is in agreement to any proposal of ceasefire. How volatile do you expect the oil markets to be for the next few days, Amit?
I actually don't expect too much volatility. The range would be probably $65 to $75, more or less. $80 is quite a stiff resistance, even technically. And I don't see too many reasons of whatever is happening with the tariffs war at this point of time, that global economy or these Middle East economies can actually sustain oil uh, above $80 to $85. So till this range is maintained, I don't think it is going to play too much of an issue with the equity markets. Uh, uh, there is precedent for such behavior. Even during Russia-Ukraine war, we saw crude going up to $130. Nifty corrected 10% in a month, but it stabilized after that. Investors shifted focus more towards earnings resilience and strong domestic demand. So I think a similar pattern is playing out here. I think there are far more positives at this point of time, and moreover, all the corporates are actually hedged almost 6 to 12 months ahead. So this kind of volatility does not really hurt them too much, except probably the oil specific companies which you have mentioned earlier. But it does not really impact the corporate profitability. It only impacts when the hedges get broken and you start trading above $80 to $85.
Understood. Okay. Let's also talk about the IT sector, and this is again directly linked to how the US markets respond and the strength of the dollar index. Now, given what we are seeing unfolding, in fact, we had an economist, Kumar, on the previous segment on this show, and he said that perhaps there could be a possibility of the US Fed easing the monetary policy before the September expectation. Now, in light of that, and of course, what we are seeing, the easing of tensions, at least temporarily as of now in the West Asian region, the US markets closed well, and that is being felt in the Indian IT stocks as well. But we've seen the IT stocks have been fairly volatile. Now, can we assign some sort of an assurance that from here on, the story for the Indian IT stocks should be a little brighter than what we've seen over the last 6 months?
I think whenever there is less of a geopolitical tensions, every every stock in the market sort of benefits very short term. But as far as the medium term trajectory or even the short term trajectory is concerned, it's sort of a mixed picture. If you look at Accenture coming up with their guidance a couple of days ago, they've also said that the growth is there, but how much new deals will be cracked in the next 6 months in the light of whatever is happening with the tariffs, etc. That needs to be seen. So I'm not too very positive on IT sector as such. In the short term, I think there are a lot of check boxes which needs to be ticked before finding a positive level on these companies and on these stocks. More or less, they have been sideways. Nifty IT index has been between 36 and 38,000 roughly. And I think it will take some time before the clarity comes in. So probably once Fed decides to undergo rate cut, whether it is September meeting or October meeting, I don't know. But we have to see onto that. I think there is very less chance of having a rate cut in July meeting. It will probably September or October, according to me.
All right, September or October is what Amit Kumar Gupta is pinning his expectations on. I want to now bring in focus another one of the major gainers this morning seems to be Adani Ports. The stock is up about 4.4% or so in early trade. This again coming on back of potential ceasefire talks and agreements on between Israel and Iran. Well, of course, we've also heard of news this morning of Iran's fresh missile attacks in Israel, northern Israel, and also over the city of Haifa. But we are seeing positive momentum on Adani Ports this morning. The stock is up about 4.42%. Also, Indigo, which had temporarily suspended flight operations, tweeted this morning saying that those flight routes are now being resumed to West Asia. That stock is also up about 3.5% or so in trade. Amit, any calls on Adani Ports and Indigo?
No, we actually don't track these stocks. Indigo will have a little bit of an issue in this quarter because, a lot of the flight operations were impacted. Earlier we had the India-Pakistan, war sort of a situation which led to a lot of cancellation of flights, which were using the Pakistan airspace. And now we have this Iran and Israel war sort of a thing, which again, has impacted the Middle East operations. So I think Indigo will remain, Indigo's quarter will be a little bit impacted for this Q1. Adani Ports, I think it should do fine. There were some tensions with respect to the war, but they have categorically said that the ports operations are normalized and there is no impact on that. So I think market is sort of having a relief rally on that count. As a disclosure, we don't have coverage on both of these stocks, and we don't hold any positions.
All right, Amit Kumar Gupta, thank you so much for those inputs this Tuesday morning. Pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. See you.
Well, we also have another special guest joining us this morning, Gaurang Shah, Senior Vice President, Geojit Financial Services. Good morning, Gaurang. Good to have you back on News9 after a while. I want to understand these massive swings that we've seen between yesterday and today on the Indian markets. And yesterday, of course, we saw a massive 800-point crash on the Sensex, and then it recovered almost 450 odd points. And this morning, again, markets seem to be fairly jubilant coming on the back of the ceasefire that has perhaps been agreed upon. At least that news is still coming in. We don't know if Iran has agreed, whether it has received a proposal or not, but Israel saying that it has agreed to a ceasefire, and Donald Trump, of course, taking the victory salute for that ceasefire. But Indian markets are responding quite positively this morning. In fact, Nifty 50 is up about 25,245 levels, while the Sensex has finally inched closer to the 82,800 odd levels. Where does the market go from here?
Thank you so much for having me on the show after a long time. Good morning to you too, and all the viewers of News9. I don't know how many Nobel Prizes will he be satisfied with, Donald Trump. I think he's claimed one too many, right? And honestly speaking, I think, the world has realized, at least I have realized, to discount what he says.
Okay.
On this value, to be very honest.
Okay.
Coming to the end, I was just reading a report some time back. I don't know how much truth that report holds, But officially, both countries have announced ceasefire, that is Iran and Israel. I think that is more important than what somebody in United States is saying. So if and throughout the day as we proceed, if we have a declaration or some kind of white paper, I think that will seal the uncertainty that still lingers.
Okay.
Because remember one thing, what happens in Middle East, especially with respect to Israel and to the rest of the Middle East countries, is a very fragile and a very liquid kind of a situation. Anything can happen at any moment unless and until we see it in black and white. So
Right.
hope that will come through and hope that common sense and wisdom will prevail upon respective leaders. And my question is honestly, what was the need of 12 days of firing missiles at each other and loss of life, loss of a lot of infrastructure that both
Infrastructure.
countries have suffered? I think it
True.
was unnecessary, but nevertheless, what has to happen has to happen. On the markets, I was very vocal in the last 10 to 12 days since this situation started evolving that India and rest of the world have seen this kind of situations very recently and deep into the history. And every time we have gone through this kind of situation, I think Indian markets are very resilient. They have stabilized first and they have started to move up north after a decent amount of clarification and stability coming into these kind of situations. So the one of the best part is that crude is at 3-year low. I believe the last time we saw this kind of spike up was in August of 2022, and then we've seen almost about 17-18% downtick than what crude oil prices were. Not that we were totally dependent on the West Asia for our energy requirement. We
Yeah.
have shifted focus since many years to US and Russia. A small portion of what we require in terms of an energy requirement comes in from the Middle East or West Asia. So it's not very serious that one should possibly take this. And my sense was that market was just waiting for this kind of clarity. See, domestically, all our data points are very supportive. And along with that, the fiscal and the monetary policy after many, many years are going in sync with each other. So I think that augurs extremely well. The next trigger that I would look forward is, of course, what happens in the Middle East is something else. But first quarter earnings this financial year, which will kick off from, I believe, 7th or 10th of July next month,
Right.
that will give a decent sense of stability, strength, and direction.
And something that also clashes with that timeline is going to be the imposition of Trump tariffs on the 9th of July. And we don't seem to be, just 15 days to go, we don't seem to be any closer to a trade deal with the US just as yet. So, Gaurang, now with one sort of black swan event, if we can call it just as yet, perhaps potentially out of the way, which is the conflict in West Asia, assuming the ceasefire will hold. The other one pertaining to Trump's tariffs is still lingering over our heads. So what should, my simple question, which may not have a simple answer, is what should investors really do right now? In such volatile times, what is the best strategy for investors to not lose money, even if alpha is something which may be difficult to find?
Well, to be very honest, I think हिंदी में दे कहावत है भारतीय जो न्यायालय है इंडियन कोर्ट तारीख
Yeah.
पे तारीख तारीख पे तारीख I
Right.
think Trump is following the same thing as far as his deadline is concerned. First it was few days, then it was few weeks, then it was 90 days. I don't know what will happen on 9th or 6th of July whenever the window period ends. But I think it's all discounted. See, one thing I strongly believe is that the markets don't react to the same news flow every time.
Okay.
And my sense is that eventually what was said on 2nd of April has got diluted down to a great extent. And I think it will get further diluted down in terms of the quantum of tariff
Okay.
on 180 plus countries that he has spoken about.
Right.
I am a strong believer of long-term growth story as far as Indian capital markets are concerned. And I continue to believe that despite of what has happened across the world, despite of the pandemic that hit the whole world in 2020, we recovered very smartly. We were the first ones, in fact, to stabilize and recover. And
Right.
after that, there have been multiple scenarios in terms of geopolitical or otherwise, which has led to some kind of speed breaker for the capital markets, Indian capital markets, and the rest of the capital markets across the globe. But we recover very fast, and I still believe that. And my sense is that with the kind of GDP growth rate, lower interest rates, lower inflation, improvement in corporate earnings, and like I said, more importantly, alignment of monetary and fiscal policy, I think these are some very strong signals. And the screen was telling you something, right? Even after the news broke, even yesterday, when that B-2 bombers went and bombed 3 facilities in Iran, we did not break 24,800. I
That's
think
right.
yesterday's low was 24,824. And
That's
by
right.
the time we closed the trade yesterday, we had recovered quite smartly towards 25,000. So
Right.
the market screen tells you something. I think you need to see that, believe that, and read that.
So has the screen priced in a 26% tariff on 9th of July, or do you think the screen is still hoping for some sort of an agreement to be
Oh,
stitched up before that?
I think that they discounted it on 3rd of April itself or 2nd
Okay.
of April itself.
Okay.
When the announcement was made.
All right. Well, we will leave it at that this morning. Thank you so much, Gaurang. Always a pleasure having you here with us.